Greetings, dear listeners, and welcome to Testing Peers, sponsored by Enfocus. Enfocus are a UK-based software testing company supporting businesses for 24 years by providing services that include burst resource, accelerated test automation, performance testing, and fully managed testing services. In 2021, they launched the Test Automation Academy to create amazing testers, and now they've created jobs for 48 people in our industry in just under 3 years, which is absolutely awesome and amazing. Please go to www.enfocus.co.uk or email info@enfocus.co.uk if you want to get in touch with them. Today, I'm here, Callum Akehurst-Ryan, with three awesome peers, and we're going to have a lovely conversation. But let me first introduce them. We have Christopher Armstrong.
Good day.
We have Tara Walton.
Hello.
And David Maynard.
Hello.
Go to our Bantermeister for this episode. Christopher Bantermeister Armstrong, what have you got for us today?
Well, Callum, given that today we are doing a second iteration of our testing rants, I was interested about something that might turn people off in the culinary field. I would like to know the one food turn-off that would make you leave the room.
So I do not enjoy the smell of eggs cooking. Or like an egg sandwich or like a fried egg. So that would make me like, no, I'm out. Which makes brunch really hard. And given that brunch is the food of my people, it's very difficult for me.
Wow, that is such a interesting question. I'm one of those people that will eat and try anything once at least, as long as you don't tell me what it is. Then I'll make a decision. But I think like you said, some of the smells get to you and you're just like, I can't even try that. So just depends on how it smells.
For me, it's melon surprise, melon. Just I cannot stand melon. Again, it's there is the aroma, but it's the texture that I hate. And if it's touched anything or it just the juices, just I hate even the thought of melon. Sometimes we've had fruit salads and they slip a bit of melon in, and it looks like a bit of an apple, and when I taste it, oh my god, yeah, the whole thing is ruined. It's just
instant ick.
Yeah.
Is that all melons?
Yes.
Or like a specific... Oh,
all
okay.
melons, including watermelon. Can't stand watermelon.
Wow, summer must be rough for you.
I've got through a fair few without any hiccups, but yeah. But when everyone else around me is slurping on their melons, it's just hell.
Were there melons in the fruit boxes at PeersCon, David, or were you able to give them a wide berth?
I was able to give them a wide berth.
Phew. For me,
actually, perhaps I should put that as a when I'm
food dietary requirements. No melon.
Food dietary requirements, no melon.
Just because I'm me. For me, the thing is, it's a combination of smell and texture that puts me off food. But I think the one that's worse, I remember waking up one morning and a housemate of mine was cooking a smoked mackerel in the kitchen, and I had a ground floor bedroom, so I was just across from the kitchen, and it was vile, and I literally got up and walked out the house and didn't come back till the night, hoping that I opened my windows and everything just to get out.
That doesn't feel like a waking up smell.
so rough.
It's I've definitely been so hungover before that when you've cooked something and then you sit down and smell it, you just go, no, I can't, no.
How come toast never has that problem though? Even burnt toast.
Because toast is pure and good.
I don't know. The smell of burnt is definitely one of those things that gets to me. I have thrown out entire meals that I've cooked because it's scorched a little. I just can't handle that.
Well, now, listener, we could carry on just talking about food, But maybe we should go on testing rants. Now, this is really, we're testers and we want to rant about things in our working life. We don't have to just stick to the confines of things that are rubbish in testing, but just that incur our wrath on a daily basis. And if I may begin, first thing I want to complain about is how often things are hard to find when they absolutely shouldn't be because someone didn't comment or link what they were supposed to do. For example, you've done a pull request, you haven't linked to the right ticket or work. You've had a discussion in a Three Amigo session on a ticket to be changed. You didn't capture that in the ticket. So something's changed, it ain't there. Decision's been made, you haven't done it. A bug's related to an epic, it's not linked. How is someone supposed to discover things that are related to other things if you haven't done the work? Why do I have to rely on having a conversation with somebody to try and find out the answer to something that could have been handled in the tool that we've got for our workplace?
Can I counterpoint this?
You can, as long as it qualifies as a rant, Cal.
Then my rant is people who desperately feel the need to document everything in tools rather than just having the conversation.
But that it's more, think about this in a world of who benefits in a company of things not being visible, things that should be visible when things are not visible.
So it depends on your audiences, right? If you work in a small engineering team of 3 people and you're basically pairing the whole time, you don't have to write things down all the time. The only people that
Context.
are the people on the outside who are trying to micromanage, the people who
Yeah.
are trying to like do all the reporty type things. So obviously, my context is much more like embedded into a team of engineers, and rather than just like writing reels of documentation, I'd rather just knock it out.
Doing something for the sake of not having to do it, doing something that would take me much, much longer than if I just had a conversation is another rant. But in the world where I work in a place where maybe there's been high turnover, where perhaps there are single points of failure, which perhaps encourages a little bit of that superhero kind of swooping in to save the day because they know all the stuff, but secretly they don't share their information. They manufacture a situation where they are in fact single points of failure. That irritates me greatly.
I would counter
actually. This is great fun. Go on.
Your thing about not writing it down just for 3 people, because the hope is that startup will scale, and if you're not used to writing it down, then you won't actually build that into the culture, and therefore you will lose the ability to look back or see what's happened and pass that information on. So it is sort of recognizing what Chris actually says. Another thing I was going to say, which is a slight tangent but similar, is people who write things down but keep things on their local machine. So therefore, again, it's sort of that controlling thing of, I've got it written down. Of course, I've got it all right here. I've got the transcript, I've got everything else, but it's purely just under their control. So they're not actually sharing it with other people.
Writing isn't the only form of sharing.
No, I agree.
Then we fall into a whole introvert extrovert thing, and some people talk to think, and some people like to write to think, and so on. I will throw to Tara because she hasn't had weighed in on this topic.
I was loving this because I fall into both camps, right? I want to sit and have a conversation, but if anything important out of that conversation happens to come out, right? If there was a solid decision made, if a requirement has changed, literally anything comes out of that conversation other than, I don't know, we need to rope in more people. I'm writing that down. One, because I have a crap memory. Right? I can't guarantee that over a weekend I'm going to remember what we talked about on Friday. But also, I've been in enough teams where, especially during the pandemic, somebody got sick, somebody didn't come back to work, you name it, and all of a sudden this institutional knowledge or the notes that live on their desk are just into the ether and gone forever. And I've joined companies as the only QA where we found out that the only person that knows it is some guy who has a sticky note all the way over in the call center 5 blocks away. And if he's not there and at his desk today, nobody knows that information. Like, it's great that we have Bob here because he knows everything, but what happens if something happens to Bob? The whole company shuts down because nobody knows where that thing is. So I'm a huge advocate of writing it down and being incredibly transparent. The thing that elevates that even more for me is when everything is written down, but nobody uses those resources.
Yes. So when I say about like the documentation, and I was being steered by how Chris had led with some of this stuff. What's ephemeral information versus long-lived information? And is it useful to be long-lived? And is it updated? Because a lot of people and a lot of places will write down lots and lots and lots of things, and they don't need to be long-lived, or they are long-lived and they're never looked at again. Or it's the case of going, hey, I've written 50,000 bugs that we've never looked at.
Yeah, that is the value proposition for these things, right?
That's perfect.
Do you know why you're doing what you're doing?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
I think that's a beautiful quantifier and a great way of looking at it. How long does this need to live? If it's just for me, I keep paper notes still. I'm one of the few people I think that works in tech that's like, give me my notebook and my pen.
No, I've got a
good
paper
company
diary.
here.
We've all just
Different
found our
notebooks.
notebooks.
Yes, great company. Great company here. But I know people make fun of me. They're like, you're sitting at a computer, type it out. It doesn't lock it in my brain the same way. And it might not be something that needs to live on other than I need to remember this on Monday.
Actually, I think I might have mentioned it before. Something that if things keep me awake at night, I have a splurge journal. So therefore, if I kept awake, the neurons are firing, I just have a notebook by my bed and I just clear it, just write it down. It may be, as I said, my writing is not great. So therefore, I may not actually read it or access it in the morning, but it is out of my brain and I can sleep a lot easier.
So just to throw another idea into the works, because it's kind of come up here. One of my rants is definitely related to assuming context and assuming that people all work in the same way. Because we've just had a conversation about, is it useful to write things down? Maybe in this context, maybe not in this context. In the testing industry, one of the key things that happens all the time whenever anyone talks about testing is just assuming there's one way of doing it and not looking at context. Like, one of the big things is like you'll see things being like, well, 100% automation strategies never work. You're like, well, yes, they sometimes do in quite a lot of organizations, actually. It just depends on the context that you've got. Maybe you've only got automators around you. Maybe you're really focused on a pipeline. So it really annoys me, like that assumption, but it gets more annoying when there's inflexibility around that conversation. And people have they've seen one way of doing things and they have to go with that.
It's my favorite quote that I've used in a few bits of content that I've produced would be from Henry Winkler, who played the Fonz, which is assumptions are the termites of relationships. We often dive into things, assuming things. Often we play out conversations and how things will work in our own minds, thinking, I know this, I've seen this, seen how this plays out before, without the same people, with different contexts and such. It happens a lot.
Don't you get so mad when people don't follow your script?
Well, or sometimes I've catastrophized, which I'm quite good at as well. And in which case, the real version was a lot better than what I assumed.
And tying in a little bit to what Callum said earlier is that also, onboarding or getting people on projects and stuff, in that, not everyone learns the same way. So actually having a written document is totally up to interpretation. How do you actually do this? You don't always, just because it's written down in a way doesn't mean to say that everyone follows the same again, the neural networks aren't working exactly the same way, and so therefore they interpret it in a different way. So actually, sometimes a video is far better. A diagram can speak 1,000 words, if that makes sense. If you've got a flow diagram, do a flow diagram. Don't write down steps 1 and 2 and then try and loop it around. Yeah, make sure that it's contextualized to how the information is best absorbed, and the information might be in multiple different versions to allow better understanding for everybody.
And a hot take, when you are sharing things, and especially when you're making content, as Chris says, because as testing influencers, you're making content all the time, share the context in which the thing that you're advocating for has worked. Because if you don't, and you just throw into the vacuum, this is how you do things, it might not work in some contexts. So it's really important. That just frustrates me.
It was a lot of that context stuff was what originally, the first time I encountered the testing community, I felt like it wasn't for me, was because a lot of what was being discussed was contexts not like mine and wasn't made in an accessible way for someone who operated in a different software development environment to web, in my case. And for a while I thought, this doesn't feel like my people, because they aren't talking in a way that I can learn and I can take this stuff and apply back into my own space. And that motivated a lot of how I try to present thoughts, ideas, experiences in a way that, yes, spoke to the context from which I was doing, but also why it might be applicable elsewhere, in the hope that it makes it more accessible.
That is so fascinating that you had that experience, because my first encounter with the testing community was exactly the opposite. It's what tipped me from developer to QA, because it was all of a sudden it was people that cared about context and could, weren't looking at teeny tiny puzzle pieces of, well, this function works. It was the holistic picture of, okay, what's our greater strategy and how do we make this last longer? And that's where I went, oh my gosh, I found my tribe. These are my people.
I'm a bit with Chris. I find it very frustrating that certain people within the testing community think that it is only software testing and only web and applications and things like that. There is a lot more to testing, embedded software, hardware testing, and I come from that background, and it's a bit like Chris. What I try and do is advocate the similarities between all the design, which is the sort of theme of the Peers Con this year, the universality of testing. So it doesn't matter where you actually come from. There are themes throughout everything. And I think that's one of my biggest frustrations, is that some people just see it as software.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I have been so focused on recently has been the QA of process, right? And that's so hard to do when you ask somebody, what's your process for this? And it's,
Shrug shoulders.
And sometimes I do it this way, and so does it this way, and everybody's got their own method. And it's like, well, how are we going to troubleshoot what's going wrong here if there's not a process? And looking at that greater kind of workflow through the entire development cycle, or even just interoffice communication, sometimes those are the things that I find the most frustration in. When I'm like, I would love to do this piece of my job here, and I would love to make this, smoother and work better, but I have no idea where it fits into the bigger picture, because nobody else has provided that context, or nobody else knows the workflow, or is communicating the workflow, or whatever the case may be. And that's one of those things that I have to walk away for a minute and remind myself that not everybody thinks that way, and not everybody's brain functions at that point, and recenter myself, because it is that ultimate frustration for me of, where do we go from here? I got nothing.
And speaking to that, Quite often, when people jump into like the details of the process, but they don't give you the outcomes that they're trying to achieve for things, it just makes it so hard to unpick things. I mean, it's always been a peeve of me, that sort of, like you say there, Tara, like that. Well, here's the process I feel. I'm like, but why? Like, I don't want how, I want what are we doing?
Give me why we're doing this thing first, please. Right, it just helps. Like we're all motivated people when we know the value of the work that we're doing. Why am I spending my time on this thing? Why am I in this call, this meeting?
Well, I think it speaks to what Tara's saying a bit as well, of like, I want to find my own way of doing things because my context or my way of doing things might not be the same as yours, even in the same organization, even in the same team. And so knowing what and then being able to work through that is quite useful.
Hmm.
Whereas
I was thinking about the spending of these things,
the spoons.
spending of the spoons.
The
There are things
spoons.
sometimes in your work that you shouldn't have to do, but you are doing that spend your spoons, and we only have a finite amount of spoons to give. And if we aren't empowered to do our jobs in the way that we see best fit, sometimes that can spend a lot.
Dear listeners, for anybody who's not aware of the concept of spoons, spoons is usually a measure of mental energy or effort. The idea being that you have a certain number of them at the beginning of the day, and that certain activities or interactions will expend different numbers of those spoons. And when you run out, you've given up sort of like all of your energy for the day. Another way of saying it could be your F's to give on that day. It's probably the more appropriate way of saying that.
Or your battery.
Bell slots. So one of the things that I do to kind of conserve my spoons is to eliminate the things that I have to make decisions about, and that's by setting up processes. So I don't have to think about it. I just know it either goes in this bucket, it goes in this bucket, or it's something that I actually have to expend energy on. Right? And I'm always really shocked that other people don't like eliminate those little things in their life, that I'm like, but you do this 1,000 times a day. Do you put that much energy into it 1,000 times a day? How are you not exhausted? Is that just a me problem?
Is that because some people just like the mechanical doing things by rote? Because if you're busy, you don't have to think of new things.
That makes sense.
A lot of testing, like, and a lot of like thought leadership and just thought industry is having to think. And some days you just don't want to do that. And if you've automated away all the basic process for things, then you just sit there like, I've got nothing that I can do to keep my hands busy.
It's in the theme of me talking about other things I've created in content in the past. Cal, I'm just on it. I did a talk about a survival toolkit, and one of the things in the toolkit is a shelter, someplace where you can come to when maybe you are a bit mentally tired, but you're comfortable and you can just kind of do that thing that you know you're good at. You don't have to spend too much energy to get done. It's a safe space in what could be a potentially adversarial or complicated or taxing environment. A shelter is a place where you can just kind of get on with stuff, like maybe you've saved up a bit of admin to do, or a little bit of this thing that you can just do. And if you've automated those things away and you haven't got that, where is your time and space to be able to recoup or move to the back of your mind, that part of your brain, the sort of thought processes to sort of, your what is it, the focus and the defocus kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, generally in life, we all need a safe space, and whenever that becomes sort of infiltrated or whatever, or we don't have that doesn't make for a happy life, whoever you are.
Well, it doesn't mean you have to automate it away. Maybe just put it in a bucket that you go, that's a tomorrow problem when I know I've got a ton of meetings and I will not have the energy to do it.
You mean you procrastinate? Procrastination is a good thing.
No.
Defer.
Never, David.
Yeah, that's a better way of doing it.
Defer.
It's a frustration.
Prioritize.
It is a frustration, like that assumption and the thought that you can be on it like 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Plus, it's very frustrating, like especially in like thought industry, to think that you have to be like good and busy and productive constantly. Because some days you just wake up and you go, nope, that's not the one. I can't think.
You can get distracted. You can go down and think that you're going to achieve this today and then suddenly get blindsided because of whatever, work, home, personal life, and it's not the path that you thought you would. And that can be sometimes frustrating because actually, although you might have accomplished something in the day, it wasn't what you thought you had before. And that can be quite exhausting as well, realizing that you still have to do the task that you plan to do today on another day.
Do you find nowadays, and especially with the advent of like remote working and so on, and more connectivity from different apps and so on, do you feel there are more pulls on your time these days and like more things that you're having to juggle in your head all at once than like you would have done in the before times?
Yes, totally. I'm constantly distracted by emails, Teams, people messaging, and I still haven't quite got the hang of only compartmentalizing it to a certain time of the day if it comes up. And sometimes I know that I have to do something in Teams, for example. I'm starting to look for the message and something else pops up, and so therefore I concentrate on that and I forget about the thing that I actually went to Teams for.
It's the whole Skinner box of like any application, even on like Slack or Teams or anything like LinkedIn, is all there deliberately designed to keep your focus, to give you little reward notifications. Yeah, Chris is doing a whole look at me kind of pointing thing. And the Skinner box reward that comes from those little like tiny dopamine hits of, oh, I've just looked at a Slack message, and especially post-COVID in a more remote world where now everything's a channel and everything's over communicated and you have to be in every single one, makes it impossible to focus.
Yeah, I would say that I've had to completely revamp what my Mondays look like because I work in a global company and I'm in one of the latest time zones. So by the time I'm up and having coffee, there are 1,000 things already going on. And so when I wake up saying, I will do A, B, and C, and then I sign on and I open up Slack and I go, nope, never mind, not today.
It's really impossible. Just like Slack just kills your ability to deep focus.
I've got a question. What do you do when you come back from holiday? You have loads of messages or emails and stuff. How do you filter that? Say you've got 100 Teams messages, 100 emails. What do you do?
I right click all the channels and say mark all as read and assume that if it's really important, someone will message me.
I ask people.
Yeah.
I ask people
Yep.
who I actually respect. What do I need to know?
Yeah, I'm with Callum on that one.
I often look at the most recent ones, so in the last 2 days, but everything else exactly the same. If you've been away for 2 weeks, those messages from the beginning of the week, they've either, the beginning of that holiday, they've either been sorted or it's not relevant.
Okay. Well, for one, as the sole American on this chat, 2 weeks. Lucky if I get 2 days in a row. I will say though that my team is very great. We have this ability to say, I'm going to be gone. Please look after whatever needs looking after. And then we don't worry about it because I know that they've got my back. So whether I'm gone for 2 days or 2 months, I've handed off those responsibilities. So when I do come back and I've got all those notifications, it's free and clear for me to say, mark all as read. because I know that my team is going to say, while you were gone, I couldn't do this. And I know that that is a luxury that a lot of people
It's a
don't
psychologically
have.
safe space to be, isn't it? Which not everyone has the
Yeah,
pleasure.
I'm very lucky to have my immediate team like that, but I think that is such a rare phenomenon.
But even when you take time off, and maybe from work, let's say like from your occupation, you get the time off, the testing community is still there and still buzzing away. You've got to be on top of things. So how do you completely like come out and detox like and go, no LinkedIn, no Slack, no messages from anyone that works in the industry? Or do you find that they're still there?
It depends. It depends on where I'm at. What do I need a break from? Because sometimes when I need a vacation, I need a vacation where literally nothing is happening at all. I just need to like have no digital anything. Sometimes my time and focus is just taken up with the humans I'm vacationing with. Some of them are quite small and might not be very good at swimming and things like that. I don't go out of my way when I'm away to look for things, but I do sometimes go and have a look and that can be dangerous. I wouldn't go on work specific stuff, but like you said, community stuff. I have been known to take a little gander at the old LinkedIn, Twitter in the before times, see what's going on. I certainly would message people that I consider my friends. They might be testers, but I would take a moment to speak with them as well, because actually in terms of that part, like I feel like I get a lot back from it. That doesn't feel like a worky responsibility drainy type thing to me, but that's not the same for everybody. And I certainly wouldn't be dropping in on people saying, come on guys, I'm still hustling even though I'm on holiday.
I'm very similar. I do look at LinkedIn just to see what's happening, but I don't see it as a part of work. It's a part of my social life. But it isn't the same for everybody. And I do appreciate that work is an absolute no-no.
There are people that do check in when they're on holiday, and this is
Oh, God,
where
yeah.
I get really cheesed off. I have had to boot people out of group chats before, and it's like, no, you are away. Don't get involved. I don't need this. The thing that frustrates me more, though, friends, is when it happens to be a leader in a company, because it sets a dangerous precedent and expectation that the rest of the company may well feel more pressure to respond to the Sunday meeting or keep their eyes on the messages they've been tagged on the emails whilst they're away, because these guys are doing that when they're away as well. And so it's like, well, I do it, you should do it too. That feels like it can be a very toxic way of leading. And I worry when I hear folks saying, "Oh, before I was on holiday, I wanted to check these things and get myself ready with these things because of the pressure of these things, the expectations of those things." And I think leaders need to set a much better example of discipline and restraint in those environments, because honestly, the things that we can infer, we've talked about a little bit, assumptions, the unspoken things, it can make people's brains, neurons fire, as David says, and cause lots of turmoil. And I make a very big point with my teams to say, I am removing these apps from my phone. You will not be hearing from me over this period of time. Please do not engage unless you absolutely need to.
I also say I'd recommend it that other people do it. I know I can't control them, but I definitely tell people to calm it down.
But I think it's almost just as important to tell the people that are at work that Chris is on holiday. Do not message him. Message me if you need anything. Right? Because I've gotten messages when I'm like, dude, I'm in the hospital having surgery. What do you want me to
There's
do about it
preparation
right
things.
now?
When you're prepared and you know it's happening, you can tell people, I'm off please talk to so and so.
Yes.
But when there's an unexpected, like the latter part you mentioned, Tara, you see that one person know, and it's on them just to distribute to people. Go, they are not contactable. Do these things. There is a communication piece.
My wife maternity leave, and I think 4 months into it, she got a message from a colleague going, "Where's this document?" She hadn't been there for she didn't have a clue. She just said, "Find it yourself." You know,
if I've got a Slack away message and an out of message inbox message, and you're still messaging me for, I really need you to do this right now, I'm not even getting that message, honey. Like,
So here's a rant that sort of spitballs off this. It's not just work. We have to, and I find as a certain type of tester, have to be present and doing thought work and putting messages and making content out there just to look valid in the industry and be able to get jobs in the future. Every single person and their dog has a podcast, has a blog, is a thought leader, is speaking at every conference, has a personal brand. And if you don't, you're getting left behind. So you have to be constantly on the treadmill. The reason I left World of Warcraft is that I didn't want to be on the treadmill of grinding anymore. You know, Tara?
same. And it's oh, and you have to train an AI, and oh, you have to learn to code this new language, and I also like to do things like read and ballroom dance and karaoke, and I have other hobbies that are not on a computer.
By the way, karaoke is going to be a future banter point. Just so we are there.
I'm ready for it.
what, as in what song you're going
Bring
to,
it.
is your karaoke?
No, David, you and I are going to duet.
Islands in the Stream.
Yes!
You can be Dolly.
But because everybody, like the bar is raising, right? If you're not hosting a podcast, blogging, doing this, like you're missing out on like potential
It's
opportunities.
the keeping up with the Joneses kind of thing, isn't it? You see an outside veneer.
And that can be really difficult because there's like the whole rejection sensitivity around posting things, feeling that like, what do I even post about? Because I've now got to like churn things out. Being an influencer is a job in of itself. And if you're doing that on top of your job and making that part of your career, it's so much work.
And my job description is to make educational content. So to go back and do actual content on top of that outside of my job description is a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I speak as someone who does make stuff out there, right? So it is frustrating. And I see that it is kind of pulling things away from other people who might not have the capacity and time. It's actually it's making it for single parents. It's harder for them to do well in the industry because how can they put time to doing all this excess stuff? It's really problematic that we're sort of doing this, and so that was a bit of a rant that sort of reflects poorly on me.
It makes all of us should think about what we're doing and why we're doing it, and also conversely, we should also be looking to lift and raise other people up. Every time I look on LinkedIn, I see Lisa Crispin is reposting people's things with lovely comments. My goodness, more people like that, please.
Mm-hmm.
And on that positive note, we should all be giving love to the wonderful testing careers that we all have, and also the people in the communities that are doing really good stuff. Most of the people are doing great things. These are just of our rants, and it's been great fun talking to Chris, Callum and Tara. So thank you so much for the time. I can't believe the time has already run out. I hope you enjoyed it as much as us. If you have any rants that you would like us to talk about in Testing Rants Part 3, which will probably come out in another 100 episodes, then please do let us know. Contact us at testingpeers.com is the email address. Look out for us on LinkedIn. You can also contact us there. And also get your tickets in for PeersCon 2026. Nottingham, 12th of March. It's the third one, almost lost count there. The third one, please come along. We will have some great speakers. That the program will be coming out early 2026, but you can get your tickets now at the early bird price. And thank you very much for listening. Thanks for our sponsors, Enfocus, and we will see you again soon.
Goodbye.
Bye.